Ray, do you have any public comment?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right, the minutes from our last meeting were distributed. Did anybody see any problems with the minutes? Any changes or additions or needed to be done? If-
Make a motion to approve it.
Okay. Second? Okay. All right, all approved. All right, now, I sent out, this is the TDC, this is basically what we came up with last time. And I wanted to go through this so that we could, we need to add to it, we need to make changes or something, but so that we could discuss it. So, we are looking at, and Stefan, I think the fund balance carry is, I know that's changed, but that was as of the 15th of March.
Correct.
Okay.
And like I say, council has approved an additional $1,371,806 to the unified budget for the remainder of the year.
Okay, so that kind of takes care of that 1,300,000 that we've
Say
got
that
on
number
here.
again?
1,371,806.
Okay,
And again, that 1.3 is coming from the 4th Senate,
okay,
and the 71,806 is what is the balance owed on the 5th Senate, as promised.
okay, I'm not sure I'm following you.
So there were 12 months promised.
Yeah.
We had 7 months last year and 5 months this year.
Okay,
So they basically forward projected a lot of that when we did the initial contract. So the difference of the original contract this year and what it actually should be is an additional 71,806. So again, the total is 1,371,806 for the amended unified budget contract.
all right, so to this point, now the 5th Cent, where it was to be used for marketing purposes, now that commitment has been fulfilled? Okay.
Just for my information, what is the intent for the 5th Senate going forward?
We'd love to see it continue with the marketing, but I don't know what the board, the only thing I remember is that our last meeting, actual TDC meeting, Commissioner Bagash said something to the effect that there are plans. So I don't know what those thoughts are.
Because generally that's going to be for a facility or a bonding, again, for a facility.
Right.
And particular types of facilities.
Right.
So that's generally the use. So, but as also, we can certainly use any penny for marketing.
Right. So we're not sure because we know that we were just doing the 12 months.
Mhm.
So just so that I understand that, 1.371 you're saying would be in addition to the 11,
No, that is just the amended Visit Pensacola Unified Contract. So we
Coming
have,
out of it.
okay.
correct, out of those funds.
Okay.
And
Yes.
giving it back to the unified budget.
Okay.
And just for the count, for this group, there's a recommendation on the next board meeting for that amended agreement and the 1.3.
May 5th, right?
Yes.
And that money will take them through to the budget ends, or to the new
To the end
budget
of the current
begins?
year, yes.
Okay, sorry. All right. And then we had suggested $4 million go toward a public facility restricted reserve out of the 11 million plus. And that's where the base center, anything that we were gonna, if we ever did anything with the sports facilities, plus other things, that would come out of the public facility. So 5th Cent could be in that too, correct?
It could.
Okay.
Right now, it's pretty much been leveraged until we get to the end of the fiscal year.
Right.
Because it's basically a revenue projection at this time. We've used every.
Okay. All right. And then the unified budget mark, now, let me go back here. So these numbers, so if I get them right, is how we suggest for the fund, the 11 million to be used, okay? Do you see any problems with, do you know of any, expenditures that might come up we're not planning for?
I am not aware of anything, doesn't mean that that can't happen.
Sure, okay. Well,
American Idol.
American, yeah, right,
Certainly.
yeah, and that would be, it would come out of one of these pots.
It's perfectly in that special event restricted reserve right there. Perfect everything.
Yes,
Except that the restricted
That's
reserve
to
is
one
designed
time.
For trying to be a one-time.
a one-time.
But that's what we envisioned, when they first came out.
Right. Now, we may have to modify that being a one-time, or couldn't it come out of the unified budget marketing restricted and 500,000 go to raised budget or visits or whatever, and then it would come out of that?
I think it depends on what they're gonna use it for.
Restricted reserve, I mean, the market is more of an emergency situation where income is dramatically reduced
Okay.
because of some situation, ideally. And I would, if I were to offset one or the other, knowing that all the 5th cent's gonna be earmarked or could be bonded going forward, that public facility restricted reserve, I don't have a problem with establishing it, but I'd almost put 2.5 in the unified marketing budget, just knowing how much we had to cut in 2020. It was close to that amount. And that just really covered that fiscal year. It didn't really address the next fiscal year, which was even lower.
Right.
So I know we
Okay.
talked about adding and then adding in future years to get to a certain point. I wouldn't mind, I don't know if the 400,000 is a sacred amount that was based on some criteria.
Four
The
million.
excuse me.
The 4 million.
Yeah.
No,
If that was
it's not
3.5,
No,
we
we just
adjusted
came-
ours to 2.5.
We were just figuring these numbers,
Yeah,
so.
It was
no.
originally 2 million, if
Yeah.
you remember, and we
Yeah.
had some put
We added,
Yeah.
we
aside
added
for.
that million, and then that 500, we combined it.
I-
Yeah, we-
oh,
Yeah.
that's right, it was
2
broken
million
out more.
just to
Yeah.
just
Yeah, so we
start-
can-
start
yeah.
using
I
it.
agree, I think it's better off at the 2 million for that public facility,
Mhm.
especially if the 5th cent is gonna, we assume or think it's gonna be.
It's gonna be
earmarked.
fed towards that, or
Right.
could be bonded against.
Right.
Which is kind of what the Board of County Commissioners talked about, that when we enact the 5th cent, we're doing that to earmark it for future destination development, capital project.
Oh,
that could
okay.
be bonded, and, that's kind of what happened to establish the Bay Center, 30-some years ago.
Sure.
And to do another big project. That's
Okay.
what the 5th cent would be used for, and then it would be paid off over time.
And the
Correct,
five-
and that'd be the identified source of payment for the bond, so then your other pennies are available to you.
Right. All right, so are we saying the public facility restricted reserve going to 3.5 and then the unified marketing 2.5, or are we changing?
2.5.
2.5?
Yeah, if everyone's agreeable to that as
Okay.
a proposal.
Yeah, you know best, I mean, how you were affected, so
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to,
And everything that part of when I had originally laid out, some proposal of 2 million and 500 for some facility studies, actually million. One of those $500,000, I think, is gonna be underwritten, a good significant portion of it, by ASM at no cost to the county.
Oh.
So that should free up some
Some
of
money.
those dollars.
Okay.
I think this is a good decision to
Good.
okay. What we've got to do though is figure out how America's Cup, as we're going through this, what we can,
I think the question is, does it come out of the 11,172 balance, or basically it's 10 now, because you've
Yeah.
choked off the unified budget? That's a true allocation. The rest are now budgeted set-asides. The question is do you want to create a new line item, either below the carry forward of the 3,372, 565, because that number doesn't change too much, or where do you want to line that in? Is that a whole nother allocation? And what does bed tax collections look like right now? Because 11,172 is not a good number. It was good March 15th, April 15th is probably a little bit different, I would think.
I'm sure Darren can answer that, but it's doing pretty good.
Yeah, right, I know.
The first 6
Yeah.
months, the first 7 months will be great.
Yeah.
Now we are in April, and we're hitting that wall compared to last year where we had the big surge, both in occupancy and in rate. Rates have been holding, but occupancy, it's flatlining. Now, part of that is we have more inventory
Right.
coming back online, so that's affecting the occupancy numbers.
But against budget, we anticipate it's gonna be, maybe not? Oh, okay.
It's trending flat, which is not bad, because last
I mean,
year
we'll
was
be budget.
crazy huge.
Yeah.
But I think we're kind of at that, the end of that cycle where that rate that was kind of established in April because of that pent-up demand that's been carried forward now for a full 12 months
Mm-hmm.
compared to the rate last year. We're not gonna see that same kind of impact
Sure.
and growth.
Sure.
But I've always said, if we can maintain what happened last year, considering that transient business travel still hasn't, recovered, group tours coming online, but just, there's a lot more ways people can spend that money now. More states are open.
Yeah.
California is pretty much fully open now, and, we benefited from that last year, them not being open. International travel's, still a little shaky, a little dicey.
Right.
But cruises, there's more cruises going out, so there's more
Yeah.
ways for people to spend their money.
Sure, well, who can answer the question, how do we want that America's Cup? I find it hard to believe that the county will just write a check.
I think, Shirley, instead of worrying about where they do it, I just think we need to go ahead and
Plan
that they
for
do
it.
that.
Okay,
I don't know how Stephanie feels about that.
As far as writing the check, it's, I think the board will listen to what they say, what do they need.
uh-huh,
It's possible that if the board approves front-ending that so that they can have that initial startup dollars and
Sure.
combine it with their private dollars and provide some additional cash flow,
Mhm.
that sort of thing. I can see the board potentially approving that, depending on how it's presented. But otherwise, if they have all that already, then certainly this is just an additional allocation and it would be a reimbursement only. So it's just
Yeah.
however it's presented.
then I guess what we do,
Just find a place to slot it.
just slot it maybe after the carry forward, out of that 3-3.
Yeah.
Because it's not really gonna be a reserve, it's now becoming an allocation.
It's gonna be an allocation, exactly. All right,
Yeah, that is not a reserve, right.
okay,
So you
and,
just wanna, do we wanna show it as like through the unified budget to Ray, or?
I would love to see it funneled through one of our
That's, I would
organizations.
too.
There's
So then, to
someone
help,
overseeing that.
because they're gonna need some assistance, you can't use TDC dollars for this, and they're not gonna know that. And I'd rather see it come through PSA or Visit, but I think it's a PSA because it's a sporting event, but I don't wanna dump something on you guys.
Whatever I do is gonna end up with him,
Okay.
passed with him and
That's
his
Sure.
assistance
That's
anyway,
true.
so.
Okay.
We're happy to help
All
facilitate
right.
that, whatever.
So that would be an additional contract amendment. That, we're doing one, and if, depending on how it goes, we may be doing
Right.
a third one.
Another one, right.
Right.
We've done that before. So,
Will there be a limit on when those dollars have to be spent, though?
so this is a
It's
little bit.
open-ended, then
This
it's,
is a little bit different.
yeah,
So
It's not- it's not
this would be.
tied to a fiscal year.
Right, this would probably be, we would do this one, actually, probably need to do this on a separate PO, really.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
So that way it's more trackable.
Sure.
So that this committee can stay on its focus on reserves, do you want me to sit down with Tom and Collier and have a meeting and maybe with you and say, this is how we gotta lay this out, and then make a recommendation to the BOCC and the TDC on how we foresee this coming and what is that timeline? You'd be.
Yeah, we haven't really
specific.
specifically
Yeah.
seen any details
Right.
of how that money is to be spent.
I think
or
that's
how it's
That's great,
And if it's a multi-year, we need to have that language
yeah.
in that MOU.
The guy's a billionaire, he's
Well,
not
it-
gonna know whether he gets $500,000 this year or next year.
Right.
I
so
always
it
get a
makes-
little nervous when we have to front load stuff based on them, the other money being raised. It's
Right.
like, where's your commitment? Once
Yeah.
we see the building up, and the commitment that, obviously when the boat arrives, that's a pretty big commitment, but I know there's some things that they're promising.
Right.
Is any of this money tied to them fulfilling their promises?
Sure.
Before it's released?
Well, then where would we put the 500,000?
We're gonna make
just
those
in your
kind of
in their
commitments,
budget?
it should be tied
Yeah,
to some
I would
performance
say just like Ray
measures.
said, just underneath,
Mm-hmm.
just put it there. I have it as, an additional allocation, to Visit Pensacola PSA and an agreement, and then a $500,000 amount going there. And it would just be an after.
After the carry forward,
Mhm.
okay.
I
Because he
definitely
wanted
wanna
a
sit in
three-year
on that
commitment, I
conversation
never
with
heard
Ray.
him
No, we didn't give them three, I
I
mean,
never got it.
'cause we didn't
Warm and
know.
fuzzy than anybody
Yeah.
was saying, oh, we're gonna give you 500 for the next 3 years. So if Darren and if you're all okay with that, Darren and I will take the lead and
Mhm.
schedule a meeting with those guys and say, if you wanna get this,
I think
looks
that's,
like they're happy to give it to you, here's how the guidelines that we've been directed to do is.
I think that's the
Sure.
way to do it.
And anytime we have something like this, even when we were talking about the new sports facility and things, lots of meetings, years of conversations, literally. So, and a lot of that had to do for the board to buy in. It's like, how much is coming in? How much are we partnering with? Where are those dollars? Can you show us those dollars and that commitment that you have, what the plan says that you have, that sort of thing. And I would expect the same thing from them. They've got to be able to show us that they have the resources to support the allocation.
Perfect.
And once that happens, then they may very well be able to get that 3-year commitment.
Right.
Once they check all the appropriate boxes,
Exactly.
that this is a good investment, and we know that this is the real deal. So,
Yeah, that's
If-
good.
If you think they get the 3-year commitment, then what are the additional funds?
So, that could,
It'd be the unified budget would,
yep,
be
increased
an
by
additional,
500,000.
yeah.
So
It'd
it
be,
either be part of the budgeting or could come out of excess that's added to.
Mhm.
I would probably say we probably just want to include it, and I can always do a fund balance plug, as long as our revenues continue to do good. It could be a fund balance plug on the front end to make sure that you've got the extra 500,000 to accommodate as part of the budget process.
yeah,
So that way, you'll have a much cleaner carry forward that's just available for whatever, is needed or necessary.
okay.
On our, we just wouldn't want to confuse, the unified budget request, we've been receiving about 65% of the first 4 cents on historically, that 500,000 all of a sudden becomes part of the 65%.
No,
And we're
it's
like
in a,
losing the
Right.
marketing.
right, no, it's in addition to that, and I think that was pretty well done, yeah.
We're gonna cut you 500,000.
Yeah, right, to make that-
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. No,
We'll give you 500,000.
no, that's,
After the cut.
yeah, okay. No, I think, it is understood that, what the budget is. Okay, so then, is there any on this, fund balance carry forward, just so that we've got those things? Is there anything else that anybody, that we can see before we move on that, all right, if not, then what we had talked about at our last meeting, 35% to public of the marketing reserve, 35% to public facility reserve with no cap restrictions, 25% to unified budget reserve with 5 million cap restrictions, 10% special event restricted reserve with 2 million cap, and then the 500,000 per year for beach renourishment with a $5 million cap, with restrictions. Use would require match of some outside agencies. So those are the things we discussed. The Pensacola Civic Center and any future, and we can add more to this, that comes, so everybody's understanding, that comes out of the Public Facility Reserve Fund.
I think, conference center, if you want to just call it facility development,
Yeah, facility spaces could work.
versus just sports.
Okay,
Yeah.
facility, say that again? Future-
Pensacola Bay Center, future facility
Yeah,
development monies would come
Okay.
out of facility development,
okay,
yeah.
yeah, that's a, all right. I added that in there so that people would know, so it's very specific as to what, and I guess, also, like, I think they're doing new bathrooms or something out at, they're painting the beach ball, water tower, there's some new bathrooms or something that's being renovated.
I think some of the pavilions or something.
Yeah,
Is that already earmarked prior to the 11-172, or will be coming up? It is, that's already been.
yeah, it's already been, but stuff like that would come out of this amount. All right, now, Ray, y'all, or Laura, you had this need agreement policy for each fund.
Yes, so that was just saying to have a policy for, as a note from our previous meeting.
Uh-huh.
For each of those funds, so have like specific, restrictions.
Oh, okay.
Requirements, for each one, which we kind of started doing.
Okay.
You know, for example, with the match of an outside agency for beach nourishment, like those kind of.
Right.
Just to make sure we include all of that.
So then we would, well,
That's page 2 as well.
yeah,
Yes, yes, so we started that as well.
all right. Now, all right, the one thing, the breakdown of allowable pennies. All of the pennies can be used for marketing.
Correct. However, I'm not sure if the board wants to do that on the 5th one or not.
Okay. Well, then do we need to break down? I mean, you would know what pennies can be used for what, you know, what expenditures. So,
We don't have any of the reserve buckets that we're looking at that are way out of whack with the uses of most of the pennies, correct? Correct.
so,
So he can do a lot of
So,
juggling.
yeah.
This is just something that I did, like pennies right here.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know if that helps you or not.
Yeah, it does.
But
I think
that's just what I think.
Okay, well, then you're the man. All right, I'm gonna pass this around too.
And again, like I do have the 5th on there.
Uh-huh.
My assumption would be that
There's
I
gonna be-
have it on the facility one, just
Right.
because that would be my assumption.
Those-
that that's what we're looking
Well, that's good. Then we really don't have to have a breakdown for each bucket because,
for. Cancel out of multiple.
yeah,
depending.
and you're not gonna, I mean, it's not gonna go out of the wrong thing. Okay. And then identify special event procedure, one-of-a-kind special event or unique circumstance with TDC approval. Basically, that's like the race car, event, America's Cup, and it's not really just a one-of-a-kind. Well, it is one-of-a-kind, it's
We
just
do
not a
tall
one-time.
ships, maybe that would be considered.
Tall ship.
Which we are looking at bringing
Yeah.
back. We're in discussions for next spring, April.
But do we need to, we don't really need to spell that out. We know that it's listed.
Yeah, I think what I would scratch of this sentence is sent through the designated, it would be designated, I don't know, organization versus, I think these dollars are outside the existing grant program, right? So we have limits on our program, so does
Right.
Ray, so we wouldn't want to confuse these dollars with the existing grant program.
Okay.
So I'd probably take grant program out, but then they would be distributed through, you know, whatever organization,
I think
so
what
whether
the
it's a
goal-
sports related or something Visit wouldn't be responsible for.
What we were trying to do is for, if I remember correctly, was we were trying to make these special events come to the unified budget and the appropriate organization that they would normally go to for them to vet them first. Whether it be a concert for Darren, a chance to bring the New York Philharmonic
Right.
come to Ace, or
Race
somebody
car.
would come to Pensacola Sports for a sporting event. They would come through our unified, that particular unified budget member for them to apply, and we would vet that,
Mhm.
and then bring it to the TDC on their behalf. And
And,
say, we think this is a good use of these reserve buckets.
well, one of the things too, if we have a policy in place, it would then have sent America's Cup to PSA before coming to the TDC.
Yes.
Okay,
And-
so,
and
but we
tall
didn't
ships should come through
visit or,
visit.
Mhm, yeah. So any entity, so that would eliminate
Probably
them.
with that request, you designate who they would,
Right,
unless the county really wants to deal with
right,
the details of that.
sure, okay.
You can designate it through one of us to facilitate.
Right, and we can rewrite this too, to note that it does not, it's outside the existing grant programs that the entities provide. So-
That's,
Oh, the
that's the purpose
timeline.
of the,
Because he has restrictions on timelines too, because if he misses his time of applicable
Yeah.
ability to grant.
right, I mean, we do workshops, we have one enrollment period. If you don't participate in that, I mean, we have mini grants, but otherwise you're lining up for next year.
Okay,
And Ray, just so I understand what you're saying with that special event, so if, like, Five Flags was coming, they come to PSA, then PSA would then come to TDC, but then the funds would also go to PSA. And then, you know,
And that's kind of the way we thought this was
Right.
gonna happen,
mhm,
but it was just clean, because they were like, yeah, whatever. That's
Yeah.
kind of the way it
yeah,
fell out. I think everybody thought that it was going to be an adjustment to our contract for the
Right.
50.
yeah,
And we would hold them accountable, and then, they were comfortable doing it just directly.
Mm.
Which ultimately can be okay, as long as it's been vetted by us.
right,
And recommended by us, and
Right.
we have a chance to see it so that we have some input. And the commissioners now are not getting bombarded, or,
Right.
or the visit board's not being bombarded
Right.
by a bunch of side play.
right,
You gotta go through these organizations, because they're our tourism organizations.
mhm,
You get their support and their buy-in,
right.
they're gonna be your partner.
right.
And I think that's, if we've got that, a clean policy, then it will eliminate anybody, just like Cadillac. And he's not a one-time event, but he wasn't getting the dollars through your grant
get that.
program, and then it comes back to us. We didn't allow any, I mean, we didn't give it, but it's just, it is cleaner, and if y'all don't vet it, it shouldn't happen.
All the things that unified budget, whether it's Sertoma Fireworks, all of those things that they have tried to push backward. The purpose of creating the unified budget was to create, you're gonna have one-offs, we all know
Right.
that, probably.
Right.
You're never gonna stop all people. But it creates that one simple system of who your marketing professionals and travel tourism professionals are supposed to be. That's supposed to be us.
Right.
Having a shot at and review and becoming a partner, you would say, that is a great opportunity.
Right.
We got you back. Let's
Right.
go get that.
Right, perfect. So they've got to sell y'all before
And
coming
show
to
us the
us.
numbers in return.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna be one-offs that somebody got,
Yeah,
and we get that.
And, you know, you guys are doing it all the time versus a one-off may not have an
Right.
event
And
all
it
the
becomes a
time.
political hot potato for the commissioners
Right.
if they have to. And that's one of the advantages of why they wanted the unified bill. I don't want to tell them
Right.
no.
Right.
You tell
Well,
them
you talk
no.
about-
right,
Ace,
Yeah.
Pensacola Sports Visit.
Right,
yeah,
You tell him no.
right.
And we have graphs and charts and scorecards that say, yes, you should get this much money, no, you shouldn't, and you get an A plus, or you get a B, or you get a C, so you get 50% of your money that you need.
And then sometimes, then they don't like it, being the applicant, and then they go to the board. again.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it
Exactly.
just, it
That's why I
does.
said you're always gonna have those
Right.
people
Oh, it
that's not
does.
going to play the game, but at least you have the vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
and the board
It
can
also
say,
leaves, also allows the board to ask, you know, hey, Ray, did they come to you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they
Yep,
did, but we
yep.
didn't think it was a valid, you know.
Right,
And here's why.
Yeah.
The numbers.
Right.
that they
Exactly.
put
Right.
together.
But if you guys still think that you know more than we do, then that's up to
Right,
you
then
guys to
you're
make that
right.
decision.
they
yeah.
have the ultimate power, we're just.
To make an
Sure.
informed decision.
Right.
yeah.
Yes.
But, well, this may be the tool that they can use to say, look, we've got, this is our policy, we're going by it, and sorry. All right, then, looking at these restrictions, all reserve accounts are maintained in accordance with Escambia County policy and procedures. That's- Access to the restricted reserve funds must be made with the request of the Tourism Development Council and in their intended use must be in accordance with state and local statutes of the TDT. If approved by a majority plus one of the TDC, the funds must also be approved by the Board of County Commissioners by a supermajority vote. Are we still good with that?
So that's gonna be 4 out of 5.
Uh-huh.
Correct.
You don't get 4 out of 5 a lot, but,
For a unified budget, if we have a storm,
yeah,
it's unified, the BOCC is gonna go.
yes, oh, I agree,
Stefan's going, yes, sir, we
Yeah.
need to have,
right,
we have the money and it's in a reserve.
Yeah.
Now is the time to use it.
yeah. I don't disagree, I'm just asking, is supermajority where we want to keep it, and not majority? Do we foresee any problems?
I think it's good to have a problem with it, to be hard to get, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Until we don't get it, then I'll be not.
I was gonna say, yeah, you're like,
I
oh.
understand we're putting challenges on them, but
No.
I think we should be challenging ourselves to do it the right way.
I don't disagree, but I also know the politics of what goes on sometimes with personalities.
Yeah.
And my only concern is like, you want it? I'm not. And we get, sometimes we have that
I
as,
would hate for us to make policy based on politics instead of doing the right thing. To me, this is the right thing.
any
But
other,
I understand
Well,
that.
guess
I
that's
agree,
okay.
I think
Yep.
it, you know,
Okay. I'm
Okay.
good with
I
it
think it
too.
should be
okay,
Um,
as long, because y'all are the ones,
Probably,
We can
may not
prepare
like
it
it down
this
the road,
way.
but I
Yeah.
think it's,
And then it'll get reviewed over
And
on
they'll-
our side,
right.
and if they don't like it, or if they disagree, they may say, hey, just a majority vote.
right,
No,
and that's
majority
fine.
plus
Okay.
one,
There you
or
go.
supermajority.
Sure.
okay.
you know,
Okay.
That sort of thing, so.
And it looks good for us to say we're trying to keep
Yeah,
protection.
all right, so we'll keep that as is. Access to monies on deposit in the Unified Budget Restricted Reserve Fund must have the approval of the commissioners with a supermajority vote and a recommendation from the TDC may be used to, my glasses,
Mitigate.
yeah, mitigate the effects of a natural or other disaster or unanticipated adverse financing of capital projects. Okay, do we want to add, change?
How broad is that brush?
Well,
There we go.
I mean, COVID is not was that considered a natural disaster?
Just say or other disasters.
Or do we want to throw in the word an economic? Because inflation is not necessarily a natural disaster.
True,
If we hit 1970s inflation, that could certainly be problematic.
Everybody's putting in the word pandemic as well, because now that's becoming
Yeah.
a
That's a new word,
I
yeah.
Yeah.
agree, and those aren't over with yet, so.
No,
right.
unfortunately.
All right, so it may be used,
I mean,
Economic
yeah, I
and.
think economic needs to be in
Yeah.
there, but we all know we're on a cyclical.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the cycle, we've been up for
So,
a long time.
any
have,
economic. Maybe used to mitigate the natural or other. So natural, economic, or any other disaster? Just add the word economic in there?
Economic downfall or economic, shortfall, just so, you know, if the economy, you know, is
Mhm.
rough and
Say
CDT
economic
collections
calamity.
drop, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, a word like calamity, I mean, basically.
You say economic downturn.
Yeah.
Or something to
There you
that
go.
effect.
Yeah,
Unanticipated economic downturn.
there you go.
I
Just
try,
waiting for the accountant to come up.
I try.
Good, yeah.
Is there, so when you're thinking of a disaster, or other disaster would be more of a,
Oil spill,
because it's not really a natural disaster, it's a man-made disaster. Okay, got it.
Right.
Okay,
So disaster we cover,
yeah,
Mhm.
just about anything, okay.
News media telling us we have oil on our beaches when we didn't.
Right. Yeah, that was,
All right,
Okay.
now the special event restricted reserve is available for one-time, unique, and/or unexpected and unbudgeted events. That's why, keeping that one time in there, that's why America's Cup, we know they're gonna come back for 3 years. We can't put them in here.
This paragraph actually takes this page 1, 4th bullet out.
Out, okay,
It's supposed, I mean, that was the intention.
all right. So, then it,
Or be included in that, so this is supposed to be that.
all right. The events must be significant tourism or marketing opportunity for for Escambia County. That's correct. Reoccurring events are only eligible for these funds for 1 year as seed money or for unique circumstances. Okay? Special events must complete applications for review and approval through the appropriate unified budget agency depending on the type of event. General events through Visit Pensacola, arts and cultural events through ACE, and sporting events through Pensacola Sports. Approval of funds will require a vote of majority +1 from the Tourism Development Council and a supermajority vote from the Board of County Commissioners. Event funding will be on a reimbursable basis unless approved otherwise as above. A sliding scale of funding based on proposed versus actual performance may be applied to special event grants. I think that covers it. Again, my only question is, do we have that supermajority? But, you know, that just, to be honest, that just puts it back on you guys to make sure, I mean, if you think this is a great event and we should do it, then we'll have the halls to get the 4 votes.
And this does, looks like to me, and when I wrote it, it was to go through grant programs
Mhm.
and to have them fill out application, but it sounded like Darren didn't want to do that? Or didn't?
sorry.
It has them, the applicants going through the grant programs on there. And for us, it's actually a good thing, but just because we get data that we can put into a report, to get a projected impact and kind of weigh.
Could you just not modify your grant for program and have a special event grant?
Well, are we gonna, do we wanna call this a grant at all? I was gonna just scratch the
So maybe
word
an
grants off the end, that it's an
application?
application to this fund.
Yeah,
It's,
okay.
I wouldn't
That's what I would think, it's just
Because
not,
it just confuses people.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you
Yeah.
can't
I
say
agree.
that.
Yeah.
I mean,
So you're just saying application through that, unified agency?
yeah, because I think
right, and then
the
it's,
application would be the same.
and it could be applied to the special event, not the
and
special
just be
event
signed
grant.
off by
Yes.
Yeah.
one of our agencies, yeah.
Yeah,
But I do agree with that last line, a sliding scale funding based on proposed versus actual performance may be applied to these
special event,
special events, yeah.
yeah, or the special
To
event,
these
yeah,
special events.
yeah.
And just take off grants at the end.
Okay. And what are we not thinking about? I mean, I think we'll change the language to, but I've been trying to think if there's something we haven't covered. I don't know it, but I'm just, you guys know the, probably, you know, work with the county and come up with things, needs more often.
Do we need to talk about how it would be replenished if, once, the bucket is
It is in here.
used?
It is in here.
Okay,
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, is would it just, you would keep going with those percentages, or would you just wait to cross that line as far as?
Now, if we got to the end of the year and you did the percentages and we had this some huge windfall,
Right,
you might go, hey, let's throw an extra.
right.
You can always add.
So then we.
Yeah,
okay, so
yeah.
we
These are
would cross that
guidelines.
line.
These are just guidelines as to
Because
what we
it-
want.
And it kind of seems every time we do our fund balance, like this will be, whatever this is, we're gonna, immediately, that's gonna be the first, we're gonna put the funds per this policy
Mhm.
in those pots, and then whatever's left,
Yeah.
you get a supplement. If there's money's left, then that'll be
Mhm.
something that'll come back to council. We've adjusted, based on policy, this percentage, this is, you know, if we're at the cap, then we would say, hey, we've reached the cap, you know, so on and so forth. But I think this is a good first
Yeah.
step, to have something good and clean and to present, and then see what you get back.
Yeah.
I think committee's done exactly. I do have one thing to consider.
Okay.
And that is prioritizing the various buckets
Hmm.
and saying
Yeah.
if the end
Oh, yeah.
is, if we're going to, and we only have
Yep.
X, is the priority to put it in unified budget marketing, if that's the priority to build it up to the maximum first.
Okay.
And I would say we might want to identify
Yeah.
the wishes of the priority of the funds
Oh,
going first.
I don't,
Because if the special event restricted reserve keeps building and building, and nobody's coming to get it, we don't have any applicants, there's no real
right,
rush to get it to $500,000, especially if you've got a unified marketing, you got a marketing disaster, you need that money first. Let's not be committed,
Sure.
we have to put in the money somewhere else.
well, what we should do then is list them, in our priority. So the unified, budget marketing reserve would be then the number one.
I would
Um,
say so, because the 5th cent is already being set
Right,
aside
right.
for
So-
the public facility restricted
Yes.
reserve.
So then,
But then how does that work, Ray? What you're saying to fill that up to the max of 5 million and then start to put funds in the other, or how?
I think if it comes,
I see what you mean, but I don't understand how.
or would you just say $100, 30%, going by the percentages?
But we have the percentages, but I see what you're
Right.
saying is to
Right.
put the money first where it's most, would be needed.
Oh, so you're saying if the cap is met in one of those buckets?
No, he's saying
No.
to build that unified
So,
budget reserve.
$1 million
up first.
is all we've got
Yeah.
as potential distribution. That's the excess.
Who gets that million?
Would
Where
you
did it go?
change the percentages for any reason? I mean, right, because you've got a, no, you don't necessarily have 100% here.
Oh, we don't.
no, because the balance of it is always gonna be remaining into your cash
Carryover.
balance 108.
Yeah,
Because you're not gonna, that's gonna create your cash flow.
Right.
And the other monies that the county has for other things. This is just identifying some specific buckets that the Tourist Development Council wants to make sure we have reserves that other dollars can be used for
Right.
and will be
That
used for
doesn't
other things.
equal up to
Cash flow.
100%, but 500,000, up to 500,000 a year would go to the beach renourishment. So it may be 250 or 300.
Right.
If it's 600, then all 500 go here, then 100 will go to the fund on
So
the
the
way.
$500,000 that's earmarked in this fiscal year is kind of already part of the budget, right? It's part of the 35%, or, the above the line before it gets a unified budget. It's already in there.
Yep.
That's probably gonna stay in there.
Yep.
So,
That's
And
why we
next-
took it out
This
of
is-
up here.
Then next year, another 500,000 and another 500,
yeah, it's a new, it's a permanent thing, basically,
till we get to 5 million.
yeah.
so should
So
we?
this isn't even gonna really come out,
That's true.
out of reserves unless you wanted to fast track it somehow.
So should we have the unified budget be the priority with marketing below? I mean, the second?
Is there are there words in there for a normal year versus?
I
Not
mean,
sure you need to.
This is really your,
prioritize
your,
any of
your,
them. Well,
your
that's gonna work.
economic
Mhm.
downturn reserve is really, what that is.
Right.
Yeah. I kind of think, yeah, we're kind of overthinking it. I mean, if there's,
Which I agree, I absolutely agree that you need a minimum of that $2 million there. I mean,
Right.
honestly, well, I mean, ultimately you can get up to
5.
5, so, yeah.
So yeah, if we can start at 2.5 and work our way up from there, if we just talked about switching the public facility reserve from 4 to, it doesn't really change these numbers, it just shifts
mhm.
500,000 from the public facility restricted reserve to unified. So we start off at 2.5 and build from there. I think that's a great start.
Yes.
Just a curious question, so what is the difference in the unified budget distribution allocation and the unified budget reserve?
Marketing.
Where's
It's just the
It's
first
just
one
the
there.
first and the
Budget
third.
distribution.
Oh, that is right now, it's just the allocation that was planned for this year, right? And it's one
Oh, I
point
see.
three
We were just trying to
seven.
take off
Oh,
that
okay.
dollar amount.
Okay.
That's a non-recurring, not happening. I mean,
That's just acknowledging what's gonna come out of that 11.
Oh,
trying to get us to a
170.
number. What, if we took everything out of what was currently in the carry
Karen,
forward in
that's
one oh
that's
eight,
what's due to,
committed, did all
That's
the
due to us,
commitments
yeah.
that
So it yeah,
we're
it should
talking
come out of
about
there.
seed money,
Up
how much
front.
would we have
Right.
left?
Right, and
Okay.
that's
Put a
gonna
line
happen on
through
May
it, right,
5th. We're
right
actually
below that.
gonna,
Right, so-
they're
'cause
gonna
it's
approve
out
that
now.
now.
It's
We've
done.
already told Pensacola Sports,
Alright.
Ace and ourselves, like I just got a proposal from Showcase how to spend that.
okay. So
Between
it
now and
was,
then.
it was that number, 1371.
Right,
What
one
Stephanie
eight
told
oh
us
six.
before you got here.
Right,
That's a
yeah,
done-
371, 806.
806.
Yeah,
Before you got here, yeah.
That's a done number gone.
Yeah.
So, Juan,
What's
the
on
other
your
office already has
contract?
that number, we've already done the paperwork.
that
Yeah.
takes you to the end of the year.
Yep.
Just so I understand, on the collected over budget, the 500,000 beach renourishment, that, does that coming out first? And then all the rest of the percentages?
Clarifying, we think it's actually coming out first, and so this probably can go away in here, correct?
Right.
This would
Yeah.
be in addition.
The-
We're talking about funding the $500,000 in the whole bucket. When he gets all of his TDT monies, and Stefan says, we're gonna budget $10 million for next year, and we're gonna take out 500,000.
More like 18 or 20, yeah.
Right, 20,000. We're gonna take 5% for admin, we're gonna take 3% for this. We're gonna pay whoever else are
You
the
got the base
outside
center, you've
agencies, the
got
base centers.
the
and all.
marine resource, right? Those are top.
500
$500
comes off,
It's
okay.
part
Come
of
off
the
the
recurring
book.
budget, it's
Okay.
on the front end versus the back end.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so
So
this
that would need to,
doesn't really
That
need to
really
be
needs
there.
So do we take this out?
yeah,
Yeah,
that
good.
needs to
Okay.
come, yeah, okay. So that's.
Because
yeah,
this
that was
is
confusing.
just what you do
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah,
okay.
it's just part of the recurring budget. Or you could leave it in there and just say this is part of the recurring budget, because I mean, I think it's good that you actually maybe leave that in, but just say
Yeah.
as part of the recurring TDT budget,
Okay.
we will allocate 500,000 per year for beach renourishment with a cap of 5 million.
Yeah,
That's what I would do, just so that you memorialized it, and
Okay.
then I actually have a policy that I can hang my hat on.
sure,
Okay.
okay. Because we do want to set aside money, I mean,
Absolutely.
which
We'd
is
rather
what
be
you're
giving
doing.
them regular dollars than them come along and go, ooh, look at that.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
all right. All right, anything else?
Do we want to adjust these percentages then? Collected over, we're only at 25, 6, 70%.
Remember, he's gotta have cash flow, and he's gotta, we can't
Oh, the
spend
rest is gonna
all
fund
of
away.
that
I
money.
got
Right,
Okay.
We can always go over these are kind of minimum guidelines of
Right.
what we'd like to see. Am
And
I
to-
right, or am I?
Oh, no, to add to what Ray is wonderfully saying there, I think you will probably get some additional buy-in from my board just by having some monies that may not necessarily be applied to something and totally restrict all of it,
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Right.
Do you think we want to add 30% to the, just to spell it out in writing that it says 30% will go to the Fund 108 or carryover or whatever it may be, so that
Balance.
balance, yeah.
Yeah,
Just
You
so-
really
Or as
want that to
available
equal
balance
100,
or
don't you?
something.
Yeah, I'm just weird
Okay.
like that. But then I know people
Does that
looking at it will
need
be
to
like,
memorialized or not?
Yeah.
you guys don't know how to add?
yeah. All right, so 30% to the reoccurring,
Well, I think it,
and
You can, I mean, it's not gonna hurt anything.
okay.
reoccurring and fund,
Do we want to,
I can just see Jim Reeves saying,
yeah,
Do these come as
It doesn't equal
recommendations, or is this a
Yeah,
hard and
exactly.
stop policy?
you're right.
This is a recommendation, recommended.
Correct, this is a
This is
recommended
a
recommendation.
recommended amount, so
and again,
these,
creating reserve funds, just on the other side of this, means can't use it, right? It's harder to use, and it's gotta be special
Right.
needs, so maybe it's it can be to our benefit that if, let's say, we take 50%, let's say at the end of the year, and there's 10 million, and we have 5 million we allocate to reserves, but the other 5 million is now available to be invested into next year, supplemental into marketing, but if you keep shrinking that down, and now it's 35% or 30%, what percentage do we really want to put in reserves versus really being available to spend? That, because that would be my question on this, because again, we have a good chunk of this, 35% the facility restricted reserve, and we have the 5th cent already designated for that.
For that,
for that amount. So do you, not saying, but maybe it shouldn't be more than, it's half to put towards reserves and half's available. And once we fill our reserves, because we don't really have a reserve cap for the public facility. We're already using the 5th cent for that.
Right.
But it's not spelled out anywhere.
Not
Right.
yet. I mean, it really should be. Does the 5th cent then become, because we're establishing the reserve, public facility restricted reserve, does the 5th cent automatically just get dumped into there? At what point is that part of the new budget? And that becomes that gets part of.
Until I hear something different, I'm just going, I'll obviously budget for it, and it probably will be budgeted as a reserve, unless I get some direction
Direction.
from somebody.
Okay.
So I feel like that's what the board wants to do.
So you
I've-
need to
I've
double
heard it.
down on it is the question.
I understand.
Yeah.
If I had felt the or the policy is they were going to go and officially commit the 5th cent beginning now, right now, into a facility thing, and that's where it's gonna go, I think you could take the facility component of this out.
Right.
Other than you're gonna need the.
Still establish the
public
fund.
facility reserve,
If
because
we
you're
have
gonna
this
need
money,
some
let's
engineering
establish the
and
fund,
everything.
yeah, let's.
But I think, but
To
the
lower
fund,
the
but
percentage,
it's,
and then maybe put,
Well, and
You're already
to
putting
some extent, you can
20%
use the fourth
in
penny
every
as
year.
well, so.
Of the big
depending on
picture,
what you're
right?
doing.
You got 5 cents, 1 cent's already dedicated, so
if I.
right from the get-go, you're putting 20% of that fund,
It's not
of
really a
everything every year.
reserve.
So it could be,
It is a reserve.
what, $4 million,
Designated.
$20
It's
million
It's a
collection.
designated reserve.
It is something
We
that
did
will continue to
17.6, we're gonna
build
get real
over time.
close to 20
Is
this year, because we're already up with 2 million, right, through the first 6 months?
Is
But
this
until
committee
we
willing to
have a
write your-
5th cent, something dedicating that, we don't have a policy on that.
Right.
So until we have that, we've got to go with our,
Well,
Correct.
can this committee not make that move, right here, right now? Could we not say, we want the 5th cent to be dedicated and put in and create a public facility restricted reserve by using the 5th cents right now? That's what Jeff Bergosh wanted.
oh, I know, that's what he wants.
I mean, can we not make that recommendation? And then, when you take this, and then you reallocate this, and you then focus on the unified budget marketing and the special event reserve, restricted reserve, and that's it. You freed up.
how do you think the,
Yeah, I would,
I feel like the board would probably be very supportive of what Ray said, probably as a whole,
but do we
that's the
want,
intention, someone's gotta move it forward.
I know, but do we
We're not
want to
gonna
make
try
that, to be
uphill
honest,
battle to try to tap
I'm
into
okay
5th
with
cent.
it going to facility, but if it could go to marketing,
That's not gonna happen.
and it
It's
can,
not
I'd
gonna
rather
ruin
it
us
be.
over it.
I just hate to see us as
Political
a,
suicide.
Right.
to recommend
And he's
that.
got
That's
his
what
support.
the commissioners
Right.
have,
All
For
from
that.
all the.
but
So coming forward with that
I think,
proposal to do.
the more
it,
marketing, the
I don't have a
better.
What
problem
if
When-
you
with
split it in half?
destination
when
development,
the
that
board,
makes sense, right?
Right.
You know.
adopted the 5th cent. So I wasn't here, so
Is the
it
base
would be,
center
what
shortfall still
were those
coming out
conversations
of-
with the board? What was
Is
the
there still-
intent
I don't
when
know,
they
is
still
finally
line item.
pressed the go button on that
At the
5th
top
penny?
end.
On the
And
top
to
end.
do it,
Yeah.
what were
Last
those
step.
conversations
But you're right.
and what was the board's direction as far as implementing the 5th cent?
Because we were in the pandemic, if I remember correctly, it was 1 year, it would be dedicated to marketing
12 months.
to assist with the problems and the challenges we had. I don't think discussion of the
Beyond that.
5th cent, that, beyond that, occurred. Now, I think there has been some discussion with commissioners possibly, seeing that for other things, but there has not been a discussion publicly that I'm aware of that the 5th cent's going to be used for.
Well, if you're not comfortable with it, leave it like it is, and
I
if
just-
somebody,
yeah.
if the TDC says, at the next meeting, says, we like a lot of this, but you know what, let's commit the 5th cent.
Yeah.
You got the commissioner who's the
And I'm
number one
fine-
guy.
exactly.
And he's on the TDC, and he can say, I wanna change it, I wanna put it right in here, right in the 5th cent right now is gonna start going
And
towards a
if that,
public facility.
if that occurs,
they
then
can
that's
vote on it.
fine, but from this moment, from this committee, I'd rather us see it used to the unified budget, to marketing, to, if they make that change, then we have no control over that. But I want to go back to the 30% to, is it the reoccurring fund balance? Is that what we were saying to make this add up,
Fund balance carryover.
carryover?
Yeah, so
Okay.
my thought is not tying up any more than 50% of those reserves, so that if you are over by 6 million, you know, right now we've got 70% tied up, and that means only 30% would be available to potentially augment a unified budget, or other things are gonna come up, you know, that are gonna be seeking funds. And
Well, wouldn't we before we go into reserves, wouldn't we get y'all's budget funded first?
so right now, we've submitted our request for next fiscal year.
Okay.
Right, so we've submitted, basically a similar amount, 10.4 million, doesn't include the 5th cent. So based
Okay.
on the fact that the amount per 1 cent has grown, and so it's getting really close to like $4 million a penny,
Wow.
you know, we did 17.6, including partial of the 5th cent. And now already, you know, we're ahead of last year by a couple million, so we're right at that 20 million mark. So we put in our budget based on that, but because the county won't, it's gonna dial it back a little bit. And so Stephanie's talked about more like 18 million.
Sure.
So 65% of 18 million is not 10.4, and we noted that in our request that we'd like some of the reserve money to be added to it, like it was this year, really. I mean, they gave us part of
right.
the 5th cent in advance to get to where we are. So in our request, most of that, I mean, other than the pulling from the reserve to create that 10.4, you know, that's our request. You're asking, would we not recognize that before we start divvying up these funds?
That's what I would think, but I'm asking that. Wouldn't you go to the,
So the question is, when would we start pulling these percentages from the reserve? It's usually like the fiscal year later, right? I mean, you would wait until
This would
after
be-
October 1?
Correct. Like, there's certain elements in here, certain like the beach renourishment, that'll just be part of the budget.
Right.
But then what I would anticipate, whatever that available carry forward is, will then, this will be like my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 percentages and amounts and caps and things to address as part of the carry forward. That's the way I would envision it.
so we're talking about not at 9/30, or September 30th.
Fund balances are, historically, they're calculated in January. The books usually get closed, with our clerk, usually late December. And then, like I said, we start doing those calculations in January. Sometimes we can get to the second meeting in January, sometimes it's the first meeting in January that we would normally, have those brought forward.
Yeah, but probably
Okay, so that'd be January of
I'm thinking.
2023.
Yep.
Okay.
So, one thought here, based on your comments, Shirley, is that if you said, okay, you've got money left over, theoretically, if we would have budgeted the full amount, 65% of the first 4 pennies we would have asked for that, or based it on that. So when there's excess, you know, should we be asking for 65% of 4 cents anyways, to be spent on the unified budget? So if we, you know, said, all right, as we plan forward, 25% goes to the unified budget, 15% goes to operating, actual spend the money and invest it and keep growing the tourism impact. 15% goes to building the restricted marketing reserve.
Sorry, I'm still not
10%
sure.
goes to the event reserve. That's 50%, and you have 50% that still can be used for whatever.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry, messed me
Sorry,
up.
guys, away.
I think you gotta use a dollar amount and where that bucket is, money, to clearly say that. So you're saying that you get to the end of the year and there's $100,
Okay.
and.
You
and
earmark
that's in
$25
in
as like a
January
supplemental.
1. January 1, we have $100 that now is gonna be reallocated, because that previous year is all cleared up.
Yep.
We're gonna take
$25.
$25 and give it to the unified budget
Yep.
reserve.
No, unified budget to spend.
Oh. I
Oh.
thought you were asking for $64 of that.
15% to the Unified Budget Marketing Reserve to add, to build that account.
Oh, 15.
That's $15 to the Unified Budget Reserve.
10% for the special event restricted reserve to build,
Special event.
and then you have the other 50% is still there. Now, you could change those percentages, but that's 50 being invested or reserved and 50%
That's
still
only 25.
available.
100, you took 15 out for the unified budget.
25 for the unified budget.
Oh, I thought it was 15.
15 to the marketing restricted reserve, unified marketing
Okay.
reserve.
Unified budget.
Restricted,
15.
yeah,
Not restricted, just going straight to the unified budget,
25%.
25%. 10 to the
Special event restricted
special
reserve.
event.
So we're taking out that
And
public
15
facility.
And 15 is coming to the special, to
Marketing?
unified budget marketing reserve.
Right. So it's
Okay.
got 25, 15, and 10. You add those together, you've got 50%.
So
Mhm.
then you have $50 left
Yeah.
that this board, Stefan, et cetera, can carry for either use for cash flow or whatever their needs may be.
Mhm.
Whatever you wanna do. Sounds good to me.
I mean, I like that because it
So-
earmarks
And then a
those.
15 you got, Darren, would go towards that cap of 5 million.
Yes.
Okay,
And the 10% would go towards a cap of 2
2
million.
million.
Yep.
okay.
And the
And-
64% is off the table on the, we would not talk about the 64% on, and come on January 1, it would be 25% of your supplemental, if you will.
Right.
Because a minute ago you were saying you wanted to ask, put 64%. If we're getting 64% of the budgeted amount, we should get 64% of the supplemental. This is 25% of the supplemental.
That'd be a lot. Let's say
What?
with 11 million bucks this year and you got 64% of it.
Yeah.
you can do
Oh,
that.
yeah, no, I'm not
That'd be a
saying
lot.
that, that's what I thought that's what I
Right,
understood
right.
him
No, I'm
to
saying,
say.
if it was budgeted up front, we would have been asked, we would have received much more.
Yeah, but at that time of year, getting another 64%.
But this was really an anomaly, right? We're coming out of the pandemic. We really didn't know how quickly that would bounce.
Right.
We didn't know that pent-up demand was gonna hit as hard as it did, so I don't think that's, I think we're stabilizing now, so we have an idea of more consistent
Which
where
you-
the numbers are gonna come
Just a
in.
thought that I had. So
Mhm.
let's just say, I keep reading and seeing stuff, we're on the verge of one of the most massive recessions we've ever had and all that sort of thing coming in, which I just, that doesn't happen.
But it,
I know, I'm with
it could
you.
very
Yeah.
easily
It's-
happen.
It's very scary. I'm trying to save for my retirement. This is killing me. But anyway, what you may also want to include in here is like a budget amendment process. Let's say if you needed to move from one of these pots to another,
Mm-hmm.
if you had an approval for a budget amendment process at council that said, hey, there was some severe things that we did, that none of us saw coming, just as
Mhm.
more, again, that catastrophic type thing.
Right.
If that were to occur, to allow you to have a budget amendment process to maybe move from one of these other pots to another pot.
Oh, okay.
Just
Yeah,
maybe a
that makes sense.
thought.
Got it, yeah,
Great idea.
yeah.
I hate to have money sitting over there that you can't access, or for something restricted, that's not gonna, you don't need a big special event budget if the world's shutting down.
Right.
You need to be figuring out how you're gonna market it.
Yeah, we gotta get that
Have
back to the
millions of
unified
dollars
budget.
Yeah.
Right,
Sitting over
right,
in a
right.
special event, and ain't no special events happening.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
great.
That's a
That is a good idea.
good idea.
So we can put that, okay.
Trying to take care of you.
Thank you. That's why we need you.
But the 50/50 is sounds less, I don't wanna use the word greedy, but less,
That's a good word.
okay, then, then we just split
get
it.
accused
And
of
it's, and
that.
we're getting some of it to use right away, we're building the funds we wanna build, that's in there.
I'm
I
very
think it's-
comfortable with that.
Because ideally, we want to have smart, accurate budget requests from the get-go.
And our partner.
And try to work with the county so that, we're forecasting, we think we're gonna get close to 20 million, and they're budgeting 10 million. We gotta have enough respect for each other to go, okay, at 10.
And our partners
And
want
10
to see it
million's
on
not
the
really
market.
accurate,
We
we
want to
need
see
to,
it.
and I don't see
Right.
it
But
happening
understand
with stepping
Sure,
into
sure.
the role.
And just so you know, and the reason I'm going with that 18 million, just because I keep reading all this stuff.
No,
I
I
hope not.
understand.
But if we budget conservatively, and let's say it doesn't crater, but it does go down a little bit, you're more or less back in, we're anticipating 20. But what if we actually are more in that 18? Then maybe we're gonna get 20, maybe 21 this year, but
Yeah.
maybe it falls again at 18, then we don't have to change your budget. You know,
Right.
No, I didn't have a problem with your number.
Yeah.
And in January.
We're just gonna ask versus supplemental later, try to augment it, so
Sure.
for our planning and consistency from this year to the next year.
And in-
Because if the money's there, no, it's.
And
we
that's a
can do that.
perfect example. If we get to 21 in this fiscal year, come January 1, you would have $3 million over budget.
Yep.
And
Well, this year, we'd have
25.
more, because we're budgeted at 15,750,000.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
then
you
whatever,
have
then
several million
25%,
next year.
25% of that, next January, February
Yeah.
would be coming to the unified.
Right.
And we would be budgeting, the 15 and 10 would be going into these reserve buckets.
Yep.
That's a great, that's the
So
best way
just
to
so I
say it.
understand, how, when the 25% January 1, how does that go back to unified budget?
It'd be
Through a contract
supplemental
amendment.
Request.
Okay,
It's
Yeah, and
exactly
again-
what this 1.371 is.
okay.
That's
Kinda
what
like-
that,
Right, right,
that's
right.
what that is.
So, but that just gives you more funds before the next budget.
Before
Yep.
the next fiscal year.
They
right?
just
We don't have
gave
to wait
us a-
for it.
Right,
So
right.
if we have a 10.4 like we did this year, we're adding 1.3 now, but it's May.
Right.
This moves it further up, so we have more time to invest those dollars. And
So-
it would be, it'd be on top of the
Right.
budget request.
But
They
you would
just
know
gave
by
us-
January or around that time exactly what.
What
They
it
just
is,
gave us
yeah.
a bonus,
Right.
if you will.
But, and then
But it's more structured in the timeline,
Right.
which I like.
and you get that full 25%, right? Not 65% of that 25.
No, full 25%.
That's what we're proposing.
Yeah.
Of those available dollars that are coming forward.
That's right.
But also, this would also still come to council, even if it's just an informational item in accordance with our approved policies and blah, blah, blah. We're gonna get X amount to the unified budget, that sort of thing. That information should still be given to the council.
Yep.
Okay, so take me back to clean this up. Are we changing the percentages
We-
here?
We're taking the 35 completely out, right?
Taking the 35 out for the public facility restricted reserve, because that
Okay.
should be built in as the 5th cent.
Okay,
So instead of the 35% to the public facility restricted reserve, you'd have 25% to the unified budget. How do we do, designate? Yeah, to the unified budget.
okay,
15% to the unified budget restricted reserve with the 5 million cap, and 10% to the special event restricted reserve with the 2 million cap.
all right,
Added up, that's 50%. And so if there is 5 million as of January 1st, 2.5 would still be there available for,
fund balance carry forward.
yeah, for opportunities. Sure. Cash flow, all that.
Okay, got it. Okay,
Sound good to you?
all right, all right,
So the BOCC use.
Sound good to you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Does the fund, BOCC can use, they can allocate that 50%?
It just stays in the
So,
fund.
yeah, it's just kind of there, and if I don't have any direction, probably more than likely what I would do on the supplemental when I bring it forward, I just put it in reserves, wherever it goes. And I
So it stays in the
also, I just
108.
made myself a note here, so I'm gonna have to create me a brand new spreadsheet to keep up with this every year to make sure where we are with our cap and what's part of the recurring and what part's this and until we reach there, so I'll have that information, available, as we move, annually through this, but yeah, it'll just sit there,
So
until
what could
something
happen
happens.
is, let's say on 5 million, that 2.5 just sits there, come around next January, still in there,
Yep.
plus any additional funds above budget. So then we would,
Yep,
we distribute
It's 11,
25% of that
11
2.5
Yep.
and
Be a
whatever.
different number.
Yeah.
correct. That's exactly right.
and then, on the bottom where we have below the carry forward to 108, we would, that's where we would put the America's Cup. Could we, should we say that it will be an allocation to Pensacola Sports for?
Yep.
Okay.
Not in this policy.
You know,
Well, we're gonna,
This is a one-time.
No, but
We
we're-
want to mix reserve policy with,
no,
The
under this
America's Cup.
carry forward. So at
Yeah.
least we've got it
memorial.
stated,
Okay.
okay?
But it still has, I don't know that it's actually been, well, it's not, because it's only been presented to the committee of the whole.
Committee of the whole.
It's not even been
Right.
voted on.
Well, we've got to, since the TDC voted for it, we've got to show it somewhere. It can always be eliminated.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because again, you know, you're right, the board's probably gonna want some changes and it'll come back to you.
Right.
And there'll be some
I
tweaking.
think it's just being aware of it more than it is trying to put it into this.
Right,
This is a one-time times three.
Right,
Yeah.
because American Management doesn't actually have to be noted on this, we just know that.
Yeah.
well,
This is just a thought. I mean, like, I heard them talking about a facility, you know, if they're really are going to be here long-term, but again, that has yet to be
Right.
worked out. You know, then this, the facility reserve would be there to help them with the creation or construction of said
Yeah.
facility,
Right.
potentially, possibly.
And who's gonna own the facility that's built by the county funds and city funds
Yeah.
on a piece of city property? All of that is a
Right.
legal, whole nother.
but we,
Yeah, that's a.
we
would be a
probably
bit of a
should,
booger.
they're looking to us to have it.
If that's their intention of uses, is for actually building a facility and using that as offset expenses, that's gonna be a legal,
That's gonna be a broader.
so it's gonna be a
And Base
discussion.
Center is kinda like that too. It's, we sit on a city lot, but it's
Yeah.
a county facility.
Facility, yeah.
You know, yeah.
And you've got ports, and you've got ports are managed
Mhm.
completely different world,
Yeah.
and you got a
Yeah.
private entity that's gonna be bringing money into the thing, because supposedly he's spending $120 million to come here, and we're allocating 10, and Triumph, what does Triumph fall in if they say?
They're supposed to be part of that tent, no, they're supposed to be part of that.
They are
tent.
part of that,
Oh, well,
yeah.
let's
I mean,
see.
they are, the proposal's being made to,
And just like the Base Center, the city would certainly look at, you know, as far as using their port or a facility on their port, how can we use that to benefit us, being a city, and how can we increase our revenue by doing that as well?
And they should,
yeah.
because they're gonna have value as well.
All right, well, we got a lot of cleaning up to do. I suggest we try to have one more meeting so that we're all on the same page
Okay.
once this is cleaned up. So, we will, when is the TDC meeting? Oh, it's not next month. That's good, it's not till
Well,
June.
in June.
Well, the
Yeah.
budget workshop is May 17th.
May 17th.
Okay, yeah.
The, the next one is June 22nd, 21st?
Yeah, that moved back a week.
Because it was the 14th.
Let's see if I got it on there. I do, June 21st.
Okay.
That's as of the email yesterday or day before.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It actually works out, because I couldn't make it on the 14th, so.
All right, so let's talk about when we, I'd love to have it for that meeting, for the June, not so much for the budget meeting, but for the 21st meeting.
I'm out that week.
You're out what week?
17, 18, 19, 20, something like that.
So that week, okay.
Not the whole week, but that Wednesday, Thursday.
All right. What about the 25th of May? Or the 18th or 9th? Oh, you're gone the 18th or 19th.
That 25th, back that first week of June.
Okay, so you're gone the week of the 22nd?
I might be available, I know I'm leaving, yeah, from like Tuesday, the 24th on, I mean, I'm in
Okay.
on Monday, but.
Surely that
following
week before, Monday or Tuesday that week before.
16th
Okay,
or
or the 23rd. Could the 23rd work
Of May?
of May? Or what about, we meet at 3 PM for the TDC workshop on the 17th. Do we want to start at 1:30 on that day and be here for the TDC workshop.
What time on the 17th?
The 17th is at 3 PM for the TDC workshop here.
And what time would this meeting start?
1:30,
1:30?
and we would have a clean to discuss, and would that work for everybody?
For me.
That's fine with me.
Okay, Ray,
So,
I
Yeah.
forgot my phone, so I'm going off memory, and I think that is a good week for me.
okay.
I can probably, only thing I think of is, that's what day of the week, a Wednesday?
This is Tuesday. Uh-huh.
As long as I don't have a visit, that's a call of finance meeting.
so TDC is at 3, you're talking about 1:30.
Yes.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay,
That's not visit, that's a call of finance meeting, is
No,
Okay.
because in May, we actually pushed everything back.
it? Okay.
I think it'll be the 24th.
okay. So 1:30 on Tuesday, the 17th, here. Perfect. All right, that makes it easier to get here. You know?
Yeah, just be here.
Yeah. All right, then we'll send out, I'll clean it up, Laura, you clean it up, and then we'll see our 2 cleans up, and then, we will send it. Now, do we send it to you, Tina? Or- Okay, and then to distribute to everybody. Okay, perfect. Anything else? All right, we stand, or any other business? We stand adjourned.
All right.
I'll start looking at this and think, what the heck did we say?
Looks good.
Yeah, well.